I'm sure, people look back 1,000 years from now on us and they'll say, yeah, they didn't have that quite right.
They were using all these drugs and
yeah, exactly. There'll be something. Hey, it's Walter here, and you're at the Think Profit podcast, where we're going to help you develop a rock-solid trading confidence and avoid the potentially endless cycle of system switching. Right, Hugh?
That's right. We're going to help you develop a wealth mindset, develop a trading strategy that fits your core personality, and help you overcome the obstacles that stop over 90% of traders.
All right, Hugh, sounds good. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this.
Hey, Walter. All right. This might be a little bit out there for a topic, but I'd be interested to hear what you think about the mind versus the brain. So is there like is everything coming from the physical brain, or do you think that there's some other knowledge out there that maybe we receive through the brain to make our decisions?
This is really good. Thanks. And I'm sure you have some interesting thoughts on this too. I'm sure of it.
Hey there. I hope you're finding this episode useful. I just wanted to let you know that Walter and I give away something valuable every month that helps traders improve their skills. You can enter to win by simply leaving an iTunes review and leaving a comment on our YouTube videos. At the end of each month, we'll look at the comments and reviews from the month, and we'll pick a winner at random. Each comment and each review counts for one entry during the month that it's submitted. So if you're interested in that, be sure to enter after this podcast is over. All right, back to the episode.
So the way I look at science is it's really materialism. So if you talk to scientists, in essence, most scientists, not all, but most scientists in a professional sense, they are in the field of materialism. And that's kind of the way that our science has gone down this path of if you can touch it, if you can see it, if you can hold it, if you can measure it, then it's real. And everything else is not. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now that hasn't always been the case, but it certainly has been the case the last 150 years or so in our scientific fields, right? Mm-hmm. So if you talk to a lot of neuroscientists, many of them, not all of them, but many of them will tell you, just like how we map the gene, like the genome, like the human DNA, like when we map that out, it's like, okay, they thought, okay, we're gonna figure out all disease, because of course all disease is due to our genes, right? Which we found out it's not quite the case. Certainly is there's epigenetics, the interaction between your genes and the environment. A lot of hardcore neuroscientists will tell you that if they map out the brain completely they're not there yet, they don't know exactly what every little nook and cranny of the brain does. They have a general idea of Broca's area, and this is where your emotions, and this is where your frontal lobes is where you do your planning and speech and listening, and they have that, that's all. But they don't know exactly down to the neuron sort of where things are, right? But they do with DNA. And so some of them will tell you that as soon as we get to that point where we map out the entire brain, then we will know everything there is that you need to know about the brain, and you will know the mind. However, there are a lot of other scientists that believe that the mind is separate from the brain. I had whole classes in this in graduate school because I actually had some pretty cool professors who were kind of deep into this philosophical aspect of brain science, right? Cool. So it's really kind of cool. And so my belief is that the brain is like an antenna, okay? And so your mind is beyond the physical, kind of like a sailboat. So if you're in a sailboat, in fact, you might, it's not a very good day today, but you might see some sailboats behind me. I'm not sure if you can. There's one. I don't know if you can see it. But anyway, these sailboats go by, and what they have is they have this big sail that catches the wind. Okay, and the wind helps them go. Obviously, they need to get that sail just right to catch the wind. Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same thing with our brain, right? Our brain is like a sail, right? In essence, what we're doing, our mind is beyond our brain, as I see it. It's beyond us. It's beyond the physical. So the essence of who you are comes from all those experiences that have come in through your brain, and all those physical, all that physical stuff, all those interactions, your memories, the things you've forgotten, all that stuff kind of helps form that, but it's a bit beyond. So you can that's why, for example, and I don't know, this is probably going to freak some people out, but there's a book written in 2004, and I will put it in the show notes. Her name is Sylvia Browne. I don't know if you heard of Sylvia Browne. You heard of her?
Yeah, I've heard of her.
She's a psychic, right? Yeah, she's a psychic. I always thought she was a total and complete fraud. Okay?
Yeah.
Maybe she still is. But what if I told you that she wrote back in 2004 about this virus that would come in the year 2020? Mm-hmm. And she basically made all these predictions in this book. And she was talking about this virus, and she pretty much nailed it. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, and it's just like people who use remote viewing and things like that, where they pick up on other areas of the planet where they're not physically located. How is that possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that our brains can serve as a bit of an antenna, and I think of the mind as that aspect of, or that ability of you as a human to tap into other things other than what's in the physical stored in your neurons, right? So what are your thoughts? Because I know you probably have some really good ideas along these lines.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I've been researching it quite a bit, and I've been looking for this book. The name is escaping me, but the guy basically, he's done a lot of studies, and he's proven that there is like a certain knowledge that sits outside of the body, and if you get into this alpha state, you can actually access that knowledge. I don't remember what it was, but I'll put it in the notes when I remember. And yeah,
is it a new book? Is that a new one or an older one?
No, it's older. It's older. I forget the name. Jeez. Anyway, but yeah, I've read several books like that, and then there's that other one, The Secret Life of Plants, right? And it shows that plants actually have a, they can tell when they're going to be harmed. So when you think about, only eating plants versus animals, there's kind of no real difference, right? And once you have that sort of knowledge of what's out there, then you can I think it makes it easier to understand, okay, there are some other things out there that we don't typically learn about or know about, and can be accessed, from outside of us. And it's not just the brain that creates these ideas or these thoughts. And if you go through a lot of famous people, like composers and artists and all these kind of stuff, a lot of them say that I was just the conduit. I did not think of this. Somehow it just came through me, and I just moved my hand, and I wrote this book, or I painted this painting, or I created this opera, or whatever it was. So yeah, I believe that there is a certain amount of information out there. And like you said, I think, our brain is just kind of this antenna. It stores a little bit of information about our life right now, and it helps us like brush our teeth and stuff. But other than that, I think, there is the potential to get access to this other knowledge.
Yeah, so Carl Jung talked about that. I don't know a lot about Carl Jung. I wasn't really big into him, but some people were. He was a student of Freud. So he talked about like the collective consciousness.
Yeah.
So everyone sort of has this collective, like, deep in your unconscious, like the shared experience. And actually, my understanding is that there's data that comes from the mother. Like, so let's say your mother really loved Doritos, okay? Or had some trauma at a young age, like a really terrible experience when she was 5, that actually gets passed on to her children, like encoded somehow. Like that like all that stuff is really weird. That's only kind of recent stuff that we found. And so, there's a lot more to it. And whenever someone says, like, when you start saying stuff like this, Hugh, and people say like, oh, well, that's ridiculous, or that's not real, or whatever, I always just come back with, well, bloodletting. We used to think that bloodletting was the thing to do. You know what I mean? Like
leeches.
Exactly. Like, it's so easy to think that where we are, we're at the tip of the spear. We're at the we're at the point of science where we have everything, or we almost have all the knowledge and everything. But you always look back in historic time, look back years and years and go, oh, they had bloodletting, they're a bit off there, and I'm sure, people look back 1,000 years from now on us and they'll say, yeah, they didn't have that quite right.
They were using all these drugs and
yeah, exactly. There'll be something. There'll be some clear direction that we sort of went down, and it was the wrong path. It was a dead end.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of evidence that they're coming up with, like in Turkey and stuff, where they're unearthing these ancient civilizations, right? And they had plumbing, and they had supposedly electricity and all this stuff. So that just shows you that we might not be the tip of the top of the mountain, or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
We're not the highest point of civilization. So
yeah, Göbekli Tepe. Yeah, exactly. Göbekli Tepe is a great example of that, because that shouldn't exist back in the Iron Age. Like, they have all that stuff. We weren't supposed to have that in the Iron Age. Nope. I don't know if did you hear about that thing they found in Utah? Like, what the? I mean, that's just weird.
Which one was that?
Just the other day, they found a monolith in Utah. So in the middle of nowhere. Okay, these guys were like, I don't know if they were like rangers or foresters or whatever, like they're geologists or something, but they were kind of with the state, trooper dudes or whatever, some official capacity. They're in this helicopter, and one of the dudes is like, what's that? Because they're in this super remote area. Actually, a friend of mine used to work out with the Parks Service in Utah, and he was like, he loved it out by Moab and stuff. I don't know exactly where it was. You can look it up. I'll put it in the show notes for people. But they found this massive metal monolith, like a 12-foot tall monolith stuck into the rock, just sitting there in the middle of nowhere. And they're like, dude, like what? Like what? And so the only theory right now that they're putting forward is that it's some sort of elaborate art installation. Okay, maybe. But that, like, who would helicopter that in? And there's like no seams or anything. Like, like where I live, if they put a bike rack into like the concrete, into like the footpath, the sidewalk, if they put a bike rack in there, there's always like where they had to like drill the hole and they had to kind of like spackle the concrete around there and kind of like seal it up. But this is like, it looks like it just got pushed up out of the ground. It's this pristine metal, shiny. That's how I think how the guy saw it. He was up in the helicopter and he's like, whoa, what's that down there? It's just an example of what you're saying. Like we don't know everything. Like I don't know where that came from. And maybe it was some elaborate art installation that they somehow hiked into the middle of nowhere and somehow installed like perfectly. It looks like it's cut with lasers or whatever. Like maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
But it could also be something like historical or something just like there is no real logical explanation for it. And things like that come up all the time. So yeah, I'm totally with you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't really totally explained the pyramids yet.
Exactly.
It's been like hundreds of years. So like,
yeah.
Yeah.
No one can do that. No one can do what they did back then. Like we can't do it today with cranes and all that stuff. Yeah,
true. All right, cool. Thanks, Walter.
Yeah.
All information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not trading or investment advice.